thanks so much for joining us here on Border Report Live. I'm Daniel Marin, an anchor here at KXAN in Austin. This is our show where we talk about everything that's happening on the southern border with our team of experienced on-the-ground journalists with BorderReport.com. And this week we are joined by Julian Resendiz in El Paso, Texas, and Salvador Rivera over in San Diego, California. And we got a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about the U.S. and Mexico teaming up amid rising tensions with Venezuela. We're also going to talk about fewer migrants at shelters in Mexico. Also, there's a new DHS ad that is stirring controversy in Mexico and also in the U.S. And then we also have some movement on a stalled U.S. port of entry in the San Diego area. Let's go ahead and start, though, with Venezuela. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio yesterday was in Mexico. He met with leaders there. And he also met with the President, Claudia Sheinbaum, and he says that the two countries, the U.S. and Mexico, are partnering on security amid rising tensions with Venezuela. According to a State Department news release, they came to a, quote, a joint commitment to dismantle cartels, tackle the scourge of fentanyl and the violence perpetuated by transnational criminal organizations, also end illegal immigration, and promote economic prosperity and security. Julian, we'll start with you. So a day after this meeting there in Mexico, what are both sides saying of what came of this?
The State Department emphasized that there will be cooperation regarding fentanyl trafficking. They also mentioned the continued efforts against migrant traffic from Mexico. But what's interesting, what I'd like to talk to you about today, is about the reaction from Mexico. President Claudia Sheinbaum was on television this morning, and it was interesting that she said that an agreement is in the works, a formal agreement is in the works, which she compared to the Bicentennial Accord signed by her predecessor, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, with the U.S., which spells out the parameters of cooperation, the commitment from both countries, Mexico in terms of immigration and in terms of drug trafficking to the U.S., and the United States in terms of firearms trafficking to Mexico. Ms. Sheinbaum was asked multiple questions by news reporters in Mexico City today. And it was interesting to note that she spoke not so much about what will be in the agreement, but what is not being contemplated at this time. And at this time, she is not expecting to send more Mexican troops to the border. She is not expecting to send any more drug traffickers like she has done twice in the past few months to the United States. But also she's not ruling that out. What she says is that any decision on troop movement from Mexico to the border, or extraditions or expulsions of drug traffickers will have to do with what Mexico believes is in its interest at the time.
And Julian, any of this come as a surprise, that she's not sending more troops to the border? Are there still many Mexican soldiers there on the border into the U.S.?
Yes, we certainly have thousands of Mexican troops on the border on a rotational basis. 6 months ago, she sent 10,000 National Guard troops, specifically to border cities like Juarez, Nogales. Over here in the south of El Paso and Juarez, we had a very visual display of strength when the soldiers came in their armored vehicles. Some of them came in an Army cargo plane. So it's very visual. They're still here. And what she says is that once this agreement is in place, she did not give a timetable, then the two countries will hold a consensus as to which areas of the border would need more soldiers or more resources from both sides on the respective sides of the border.
And Julian, what about this idea of rising tensions between the U.S. and Mexico on one side and then Venezuela? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. That also was part of the discussion this morning with reporters between Ms. Sheinbaum and the press. And that was one of the first questions that was asked. Is it possible that the strikes that happen in Venezuela could happen in Mexico? And she categorically said no. She said there's a lot of cooperation. And I would note that unlike Venezuela, Mexico is not an adversarial country to the U.S. We have trade agreements. We even have some form of a limited binational drug cooperation, whereas Venezuela pretty much the president is under indictment in the U.S. for on drug charges, and it's not the same situation. Still, she said, no, we respect this country's sovereignty. That is not going to happen in Mexico. And as far as Venezuela, obviously that's a different case, a different dynamic between two countries.
Let's go ahead and bring in Salvador if we can. So on Tuesday, President Trump said the U.S. carried out a strike in the Southern Caribbean against a drug-carrying vessel that departed from Venezuela. They say that was operated by Tren de Aragua gang members. The president said 11 people were killed in this attack. When speaking, Marco Rubio said that the U.S. will certainly leave this on the table, this option using military attacks similar to this. Sal, what's your read on this?
Well, a strike against Venezuelan gangs or cartels is indirectly a strike against Mexican cartels and organized crime in Mexico, because whatever product people in Venezuela are moving, whether it's Tren de Aragua or any other organization, whatever they might be moving, it usually almost always goes through Mexico. So by hurting the gangs, the cartels in Venezuela, you are hurting the gangs and cartels in Mexico. My fear, my point of view, and what I am not necessarily predicting, but I would not rule out, is that cartels at some point, if you keep on doing that, attacking them directly, hurting their business, they are going to retaliate. They're not going to sit on their hands. They're not going to do nothing. They're going to eventually want to stir up something, because in a sense, the president, by attacking these people south of the border in Venezuela or in the Caribbean, the Atlantic, on the Pacific Ocean, or some jungle in Chiapas, if you were to strike them, you are, in my opinion, opening a Pandora's box, because these cartels are very well armed. They have missiles, they have guns, they've been known to take out helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft. What's to stop them from taking out revenge here along the border? For example, if you're not familiar with the San Diego-Tijuana region, the topography is like this. Tijuana sits on a hill, big hill. Down below, which is north of the border, is a valley, and to the north, you will see the city of San Diego. You can see the buildings. You can also see Naval Station San Diego, the Navy SEAL training facility, and many other neighborhoods in the South San Diego area. What's to keep these guys, who are psychopaths to begin with, to firing some sort of a surface-to-air missile from Tijuana, north of the border, striking a Navy ship, a downtown building, a neighborhood, or a school, a church in South San Diego? This is, to me, something that could realistically happen, because, again, I believe that the cartels are not going to sit idle and let you take them out slowly, one by one. They're going to retaliate. They're going to take vengeance. And unfortunately, it'll happen along the border where they have a clear shot at someone or something. I hope I am wrong, but if we go on this path, I really believe this is going to happen, Daniel.
Julian, what do you think?
I think that would be a death sentence for whichever cartel decides to do that. Right now, the deterrent in a certain way is the fact that they're still there. They're still able to operate. And that's happened here on the border for a long, long time. Cartels like to lay low. That's why they don't come across the border and strike their enemies or strike informants or journalists, for that matter, because that would be an invitation for the Mexican government and even maybe the U.S. government to just go ahead and take them out. There's always the danger of a renegade group or a renegade cartel leader. And I can see your point, Sal. Not just San Diego and Tijuana, or in this case, San Isidro and Tijuana, but also Juarez, El Paso, Nogales, Arizona, Nogales, Sonora. We're right next to each other. So conceivably, yes, it would be relatively easy for the cartels to use, for instance, a drone, like they have conducted attacks in Mexico against Mexican rivals, to do that. So it's certainly a possibility that there's only deterrents, like the consequences, that would stop him. I still believe that it would be a death sentence for whatever group does this, and that's the principal deterrent.
Yeah,
but indirectly, I believe, sorry to interrupt, I believe these guys sometimes feel they have nothing to lose. This is unprecedented. I don't remember ever a military strike on a vessel in the water, taking them out, going out and killing them. Perhaps they have done it in secret. Perhaps they have done it without anybody knowing. But this is out in the open. And President Trump is saying he's going to continue doing it. It's on the table. And again, I fear that at some point they will retaliate. They will take matters into their own hands and try to defend themselves and the way they earn their living.
I just wanted to,
Daniel,
yeah,
I've been
go
doing
ahead.
some research on this strike, and in reality, whereas Tren de Aragua is a designated foreign terrorist organization, their influence and their reach is mostly as a middleman. For instance, the boat that was sunk was said to be carrying cocaine. The cocaine is not usually produced in Venezuela. Typically, it's produced in Colombia. It does pass, a lot of it passes through Venezuela, but the activity of Tren de Aragua as a principal cocaine producer or exporter is very limited. Furthermore, most of the activity of cocaine trafficking from South America to the United States takes place to the Pacific. I've been doing some research. It shows that up to 80% of all the cocaine that reaches the U.S. from South America comes to the Pacific, is unloaded in Mexico, where the different cartels is get it across into the U.S. border and eventually into U.S. communities. So this strike, since we're talking about what could have brought it about, might be a signal, just a strong signal to this particular group, we're on you, but not necessarily the start of a military offensive.
So Secretary Rubio, though, in Mexico said, quote, I have it here, military attacks on alleged drug traffickers will happen again. So that also kind of begs the question, gentlemen, and whoever wants to answer this, what about the legality of these attacks?
Well, they seem to not care about the legality on this issue and other issues that are going on now. One concern that I have is, how do we know for certain that this was Tren de Aragua? Just because they're telling us, they seem to be the enemy of choice these days, and they seem to want to target Tren de Aragua because it fits into their narrative as being evil, number one, the enemy that we need to contend with. So I'm very skeptic when we hear talk about, oh, we're going after this group, they're responsible, they're the ones, because we really don't have any proof, and likely we'll never get any proof from the State Department or the White House or anybody, any agency that was involved in these attacks.
Well, Sal, they are evil. I mean, you and I have seen the police evidence photos. We've seen the footage, not just in Mexico or Venezuela. We've seen footage of Tren de Aragua, robbing and beating up business people in the U.S. We have that case from Colorado. So definitely, they are, they are in their designation as a foreign terrorist organization.
It just seems odd to me that they would be running drugs in the Atlantic Ocean. It's so beyond what we know that they have done in the past. And again, it seems to be so out of their way to take that route when, for the most part, they've always come through Central America and into Mexico, the Pacific Ocean. So that's why I have a lot of doubts of who was involved and whether these people are actually to blame or the people that were actually running the drugs.
Well, it's been my experience, Sal, that usually the drugs that come through the Atlantic and then the Caribbean are trafficked directly from South America to the U.S., whereas the ones, like we've discussed, that come to the Pacific usually go to Mexico. So that might be a reason, a tactical reason, why this ship was attacked.
All right, well, the cartels aren't going anywhere, and we'll certainly keep covering them. But we do have some other topics we'd like to get to. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Border Report Live. All right, well, welcome back to Border Report Live. So let's bring in Julian once again. Julian, you have some reporting that there are fewer migrants and fewer shelters there in Mexico, there on the other side of El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez. Tell us all about this.
Story. A few months back, after Trump took office and asylum policy chain, which pretty much shut down, we went to the shelters across the border in Juarez, Mexico. What we found was that less migrants were coming. The shelters were half empty. Some of them even a quarter full, because no new migrants were coming in. So this week we went back to those same shelters, and we found something even more extraordinary, and that is that the asylum seeker families that remained at the shelters are leaving. They got desperate. They got tired of waiting for quote Trump to change his mind, quote Trump to have a heart, and they just started trickling out. we have an interview with the pastor who runs the second largest private migrant shelter in Juarez. Hopefully, we can play it for our audience.
Nosotros en el albergue, las personas que estaban con nosotros
The people who were with us at the shelter, waiting for a change in immigration policy to enter the United States, got tired and started leaving. Some went to Mexico City, others traveled to Costa Rica, and others are leaving for Spain. They are no longer here on the border. Right now, we only have 14 people in our shelter.
So the exodus continues. Before it was just migrants not showing up at the border. Now it's those migrants at the border starting to make their way back, either home or to other countries that offer opportunities. I know that especially in South America, Spain has always been a popular destination. Obviously, they would prefer to come to the U.S. Not being able to do so, they're looking at alternatives. And the ones here on the border are becoming convinced that the border will not open. There are exceptions, and those are cases of resilience. I found a couple of families, one from El Salvador and one from Venezuela, that met at a shelter, and now they're pooling resources, and they're hunkering down in Juarez, Mexico for the long haul, in hopes that maybe if Trump doesn't change his mind, maybe his predecessor will, or maybe the U.S. Congress in the upcoming election changes makeup and does something to that effect. And it was a heart-wrenching story because these two families are living in one room, a single room in Juarez, Mexico. They don't have electricity. They have a rechargeable lamp that they go to the store next door and recharge every day. And they have placed their children in school, which is something very telling because it means that they are willing to brave it out here for the next few years. How are they surviving? The women are selling trinkets on the street. The men are doing odd jobs. And in general, those who remain are willing to take a lot just to not give up on the American dream.
Julian, something that was really striking in your reporting on this is one of the women who you spoke with, with the families that you're talking about. They don't necessarily put all the blame on President Trump. You have a quote from a woman who was saying that she feels President Trump is just cleaning out the criminals from the U.S., and then she still has hope that they might be able to get to the U.S. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and this falls into another situation, another trend that we also have been reporting, and that is that people, quote people, which could be smugglers, which could be cartels, are giving migrants hope. So that might be wishful thinking, but yeah. They are under the impression that Trump really wants to just go after the criminals, and then somehow they hope that he will open up asylum. After following the Trump presidency and seeing what his priorities are, I don't think we would agree with that assessment. But yeah, that is a message that is being pushed around in Juarez, and that might be giving people some false hope, or maybe it is a legitimate hope that things will change in 2 or in 3 or in 4 years.
I have to ask, Julian, these people, a lot of them incur so much debt, and just to try and get to the U.S., they really don't have any money. We hear that they're living, as you're reporting, in an apartment with 2 families, and they don't have electricity. For those who are leaving for other countries, like to Costa Rica or Spain, how do they get there?
Pretty much the same way they came in. They first make their way to southern Mexico, to places like Chiapas, like Tapachula, which used to be teeming with people. And there's context there. There are contexts in those communities that put them on the same pathway that brought them here. Very often that involves smugglers. Very often that involves further debt.
And something else that stuck out to me in your article is that Ciudad Juarez there across from El Paso does have a reputation as one of the most dangerous cities in the world. It certainly did when the Sinaloa and Juarez cartels were warring about 15 years ago, which is kind of interesting because the juxtaposition, because El Paso, Texas itself is one of the safest cities in the U.S. But again, this notion that Juarez has a reputation as a dangerous city, but the people you were speaking with from Venezuela, they were saying they feel Venezuela is more dangerous. They would rather be in Ciudad Juarez.
Yeah, it goes back to what I've been saying all along. It depends who you are, what you're doing, and in what part of the city you are. And the situation in Venezuela is that people today, the migrants who left are afraid of the authorities. They say that the authorities, as well as the gangs, are preying on them. One woman shared an anecdote of being shaken down by a police officer on payday, and that the number of police officers down there make it a habit to find out when people are getting paid so they can go to them and quote, check them down for any minor infraction or any perception of an infraction.
So what happens to these shelters, Julian, if they're empty, nobody's there? Do they close down? Do they stay open, waiting for people to arrive? What happens to those shelters?
Yes, Daniel. At one point here, south of us in Juarez, there were at least 26 migrant shelters operating. Most of those are church-based, which means that they turn part of their church, maybe the classroom where they read the Bible, maybe the dining room, into dormitories. So what's been happening is that those spaces have been reclaimed by the churches. They are now back to their original purpose. The shelter per se closed, but the churches are still going on. And the ones that remain open are the largest shelters like Good Samaritan, like Casa del Migrante, which have an array of activities that involve volunteering, involve community efforts. And those are still going on, so they're still operating in their other capacity.
What about on the other side of the border? Have you heard from some of the shelters that were helping the migrants there in El Paso? A lot of religious groups as well. Are those also empty? Are they still open? Are they closed?
The last we heard, it's kind of the same situation. Some of the largest shelters obviously go on with their work. They have been open when migration spikes. They have been open when there's little migration. So that work goes on. The ones that provided a space in an emergency space for migrant, again, north of the border as well, they're back to their original purpose.
All right, we got to take another quick break. We'll be right back with more Border Report Live. And welcome back to Border Report Live. Let's go ahead and talk with Salvador Rivera over there in San Diego, California. And Sal, there's finally some movement on a stalled project for a new port of entry out there. Groundbreaking, you said, just got underway. How long has this been delayed? Where is this port? Tell us all about it.
Well, this project has been in the works for 20 years or so. They got serious about 5 years ago when the San Diego Association of Governments, the California Department of Transportation, on their own decided that we're going to build this port of entry to benefit the region, to get people across the border faster. Here in San Diego, the immediate San Diego-Tijuana region, we have two very large border crossings that are congested every morning. This would be the third large border crossing in the area, although this one, and you're seeing the artist renderings of what the port of entry is going to look like, this one would be a toll crossing. You will have to pay a fee to enter the U.S., and then to go into Mexico, there will be a toll in both directions. This is a new design. They will have 5 lanes dedicated to trucks, to commercial vehicles, and then 7 to passenger cars. The original design called for 12 lanes where the trucks and the passenger cars would share depending on demand. If there were more trucks coming in, they would open more lanes for the trucks as opposed to the commercial for the regular cars. Now, this is the site where it's going to go. It's pretty much leveled. Everything's been done. The infrastructure is set for the most part, but they've been waiting to break ground. There's been a lot of design delays, also questions about future personnel. There was also money shortages. So they finally have signed all the agreements at the local, state, and federal governments on both sides of the border, and they appear ready. They say they are finally going to break ground on this project this fall. It is already 2 years behind schedule. They're beyond the international border fence. That is the Mexican side of the border crossing. It has been pretty much done since the summer when this border crossing was supposed to open, but so far north of the border is just barren land. It's level, it's sort of ready to go. And again, the agencies involved, Caltrans, the California Department of Transportation, SANDAG, the San Diego Association of Governments, they're saying that finally they got everything ready. All they need to do is finalize the construction contracts, and they will break ground on the facility that will look a lot like the renderings that they have provided for us. Just in the last few days, we were able to get our hands on these renderings showing us what the project will look like. So this is going to be a big boom. A lot of commerce is expected to flow both ways, also to relieve the traffic at the San Isidro port of entry, the Otay Mesa port of entry, where every day tens of thousands of cars wait to cross the border into the U.S. Then in the evening, they go back in the other direction. So this crossing, or they're expecting a lot of great things from the crossing, even though it's going to be a toll port of entry. People are sure to use it just so they don't have to wait for 2 hours at a time at the other two border crossings here in the San Diego-Tijuana region.
Do we have any idea how much they're going to be charging?
No, not yet. It will all depend on how many vehicles are in line and that sort of thing. But we do know that the project itself will be $1.3 billion to build. Some financing from the federal government. Also, SANDAG and Caltrans have taken out bonds that they hope to eventually pay with the tolls when the tolls are collected. Of course, Mexico also took out a lot of money, and it's been saying, hey, we're done. We're all ready to go dancing here. And they've been pushing a plan to at least allow empty commercial trucks to enter Mexico. This would be a way from there for them to recoup some of the investment to get that border crossing going in their direction. So again, so they can make some of the money back that they've already invested into their side of the border.
How far away is this port from the other ones? Is it going to be a lot longer of a commute for people?
No, so you have the San Isidro port of entry in Tijuana, and then about 5 miles to the east, you have the Otay Mesa port crossing. And then a few miles further to the east, you will have Otay Mesa East, as it is called north of the border. In Mexico, it is called Otay Mesa 2. So they're actually pretty close together. People will have options of which way to go, which way to cross the border. Now, for Otay Mesa East, Caltrans, the California Department of Transportation, has also invested millions and millions of dollars on a whole new highway. It's a freeway that will connect the port of entry to the rest of the San Diego freeway system here in the region. So it's been quite an undertaking, and hopefully in 2 years or so it'll open, and this will all be in the distant past, sort of a bad memory as to how we had to wait this long to get the port of entry built.
All right, we will see. Salvador Rivera, thank you so much for that. And Julian, Resendiz, thank you much for joining us in El Paso, Texas. I'm Daniel Marin. Thanks for being with us. This has been Border Report Live. We will see you tomorrow.